And if the answer is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, that's not a business I would ever invest in.
Welcome to Everybody Pulls the Tarp, the go-to podcast for high performers. I'm Andrew Moses, and each week I talk with Olympians, pro athletes, TV stars, Grammy winners, best-selling authors, CEOs, and other high performers to uncover their success secrets. Every conversation is jam-packed with inspiration and actionable ideas we all can apply to our own lives, personally and professionally. Get ready for a behind-the-scenes look at the techniques, processes, and mindsets powering the world's most successful people. Let's go. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Everybody Pulls the Tarp. This week, my guest is Dan Galpern. Dan is the CEO of DanceOne. DanceOne is the premier producer of educational and competitive dance events, and is the largest family of dance brands in the world. Dan and the team at DanceOne spearhead the growth of more than 500 yearly elite dance conventions and events, and in many ways are revolutionizing the dance industry. Prior to joining DanceOne, Dan served as a senior partner at the private equity firm TZP Group, where he helped lead the initial strategic investments that created the DanceOne business. Dan began his career as a mergers and acquisitions lawyer and eventually pivoted his career into private equity. Over the years, Dan has also served on the board of numerous high-profile brands. As you'll hear, Dan is passionate about deal-making and building companies the right way, through hard work, discipline, and collaboration. In our conversation, we explore his career and many of the success secrets he's learned along the way. Dan shares powerful ideas on how to become a better listener, how to think critically through complex challenges, and so much more. You'll hear Dan's frameworks for utilizing pattern recognition to avoid mistakes, ways to identify the right business partners, and how to find the formula that works best for you when it comes to achieving peak performance in anything. My friends, I learned a ton from Dan, and I hope you take away as much from this conversation as I have. Oh, and one more thing. This podcast is presented solely for educational and entertainment purposes. It is not intended to be a substitute for the advice of a physician, psychotherapist, or other qualified professional. So, let's pull the tarp and get straight to Dan Galpern. Dan, you and I have known each other for a number of years, but one of the things that I did not realize about you is that you began your career as a lawyer. So take me through that. Was law something that you always aspired to do? Was law school always kind of a foregone conclusion? Take me through that phase of your life. How did you end up in law school?
Well, so I always loved the deal business, and I loved the concept of building companies, and I really wanted to get involved in that early in my career. And I never wanted to be a litigator. I never saw like that path towards going to the courtroom. I always wanted to be, building things and bringing companies together. And so, yes, I absolutely went to law school, but I had a vision to become an M&A attorney, and I was successful in doing that, getting to work, with the best of the best at Skadden Arps.
What do you remember most about law school? Because one of the things that I've always found from talking to people who go to law school, whether or not they practice law for the duration of their career, they always seem to draw upon things that they learn in law school throughout their entire career, and in many ways their life. Are there things that you learned in law school or things that you learned to do in law school that you still feel like play a profound role in your life today?
Yes. I always start by, I will look at my ring finger right here, which is that I'm a lefty, and there was a massive callus on that finger. And the reason why it was there was I learned to study and work with a discipline and a intensity that I had never previously understood. And I understood that was what was going to be required to be successful, that there was no other path through that. My law school roommate was one of the smartest people I know. He's one of those people who does not need to study. He's one of those people who can read things once. I would sit with my headphones on, big headphones on in the library, and I would just write memorize and study. And so really, that was the first time in my life I felt like this need to absolutely up my game and just have a disciplined approach every day to attacking the problem, which was mastering the law school program.
Now, do you think that, was there any, in addition to shaping your work ethic, which I know you have an incredible work ethic that you've shown throughout your career, in addition to that, like any particular skills, was it the ability to communicate? Was it writing? Was it discipline and organization? Like, were there other things that in addition that you felt like law school helped really shape for you?
It taught me to be a good listener. It really taught me to be curious, and it taught me how to learn. Prior to law school, you're really studying to get through that class. Law school teaches you how to think critically. It teaches you how to constantly question things. And candidly, it taught me how to listen to other people's opinions that I either vehemently disagree with or don't understand. Really, number one, get a better perspective of where they're coming from. And then number two, understand how to respond to that if I disagree.
So how do we do that, Dan? Like, fast forward to today. I mean, you've been involved in so many different collaborative things personally and professionally through the course of your life. How do we, because I fundamentally believe, and one of the fundamental pillars of this podcast over the last 5+ years and the 200+ conversations I've had with many of the world's top performers is this idea that everybody has a different perspective. You can learn something from everybody, even if you don't agree. What are some things that you've taught yourself specifically to do that people listening can also perhaps apply to their own life to try to be more open-minded, to at least make sure you're hearing and digesting the perspectives of others and using those to your advantage, maybe?
Yeah, I'll give you the greatest piece of advice I ever got in my whole life. The single greatest advice I ever got, which was to take a breath, to breathe, to take a second, and before you respond or start thinking about your answer or what you're going to do, really take a second to listen to what the other person is saying, where they're coming from. Try and understand their perspective. And if you do that well, you're going to be much better served in terms of really being able to understand, have some empathy, and then frankly also respond intelligently.
Was that something that you felt like up until a certain point in your life, maybe it was during law school, that you struggled with, whether it was personal or professional, like just the ability, were you one of those people that just was answering before the question was finished or the comment was finished? Like, is that something that's really evolved for you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the benefit and detriment to being, I was a state champion debater in high school. And the challenge with doing that and learning that skill is you're constantly, you really know the chess game that's going to get played, and you're just waiting to make your moves as opposed to really thinking and listening. And so it's something where I had to unlearn that because I was very good at being able to be quick on my feet. And I thought that was a strength, which it still is to some extent. But the reality of it is being quick on your feet doesn't mean that you have to be quick to answer. It means you have the ability to understand where you want it to go, but take the extra time to think and listen a little bit.
That is just a really interesting perspective. And I love that phrase you use there, unlearn. I think there are so many things in life that we have to unlearn or relearn or adapt, because something that maybe serves us well in one aspect of our life may not serve us as well in a different aspect of our lives or at a different time or in a different discipline. So talk to me about the transition from law school to practicing law. At Skadden, you did it in one of the biggest firms in the world. What were some of your big learnings and experiences that you take away from that phase of your career?
When I was in law school, I was lucky enough to be working for Marvel Entertainment. And so I got exposed to, and Marvel at that time was owned by Ron Perlman, one of the best, the most well-known financiers, of the last 40 years. And what I learned from that experience was I got to see a lot of different lawyers and law firms work, because I got the ability to see an opportunity to see what it took to get a deal done and get deals done while I was in law school. So I was studying in class, and then I was also able to work, at night and frankly watch the beginnings of what became my deal career. So the difference was, the skill sets you need in school versus the skill sets you need in the real world are very different. Being a good student is one thing, but what I found was the most important part of my transition to working at Skadden was also having an incredible amount of energy, being able to really work the problem and to be open to learning. And also to know that sometimes there is an answer and you could spend all day researching to get the best answer, but there is no such thing. There really is just the answer. And if you can get a quick answer and get moving forward, get moving.
How do you know when you have the answer? Like when it's something that's specific, maybe it's more obvious, but when you're wrestling something that's maybe a little bit more nebulous, like what's been the indicator to you that like you have the answer?
Well, I mean, it really depends. I mean, from a life perspective, you have to look at it from a couple of different angles, and you have to be able to use the pattern recognition, which I do of my career, of the things, frankly, that went wrong more than the things that went right. And then really, once you get a chance to delve in and see it, and then frankly, ask people, ask the experts in that space, ask people who've done other things in that industry before, if it's something that I hadn't seen before. And then, candidly, like once you've done all of that, you make a decision and you move forward. I think the biggest problem with making the transition from school to being a lawyer or being anything is really trying to get an A plus versus trying to get an A, get it right, get moving, because a lot of it is about you're really doing the work. And for me, that was what I learned at Skadden, which was you don't have time to sit around. You have to start really learn, listen, but also get moving. And then frankly, get rest, right? Understand rest and recovery. Like you're going to be working long hours. You're going to be working very hard. That was when not only my skills of being able to study and work hard, but also finding what were the outlets that were going to keep me fresh, keep my mind going, keep my energy levels high, keep my anxiety levels low, so I could be the most productive version of me, which was also, getting in the gym and getting outside and taking a break and going for a walk around the block if you need.
That's something that's been really, really fascinating and a through line through many of the conversations I've had, Dan, with hundreds of the world's top performers from different disciplines, is the idea of rest and recovery and recharging, and how that it seems as though like over the years, society has created this, you're either productive or you're not productive, right? And what I have found, and this has been confirmed by Olympians and Grammy winners and Academy Award winners and best-selling authors, is that sometimes the most productive moments and things that we create or ideas that form in our mind happen when we're, air quotes, resting, right? It's when you go out for the walk, when you're stuck, when you get in the shower, or when you're driving in your car, or when you're taking your kid to school. That's when the ideas strike. That's when sometimes it seems like we're almost at our best creatively. So it's interesting that you identified that at maybe a time when society was not necessarily there, because it's something that we're certainly talking about more the last number of years, but not necessarily when you had began your career and you were getting out of law school.
Yeah, this is probably, I mean, if I was going to tell you like this is like you're preaching to the choir here, this is the most important thing I've learned in my career, which is I actually agree with most of what you said and I disagree with some of it too. And so
tell me what you disagree with.
I disagree with the fact that everyone can like be driving somewhere or go for a walk and you're going to be able to have those ideas pop in your head. What I agree with is this: each of us has to find the way to get out of our own way and get our mind thinking naturally, get into that flow state. So for me, what I learned was that at my heart, I was an endurance business athlete and an endurance athlete. And so I had to find the ways to allow my body to free my mind. And so I became an endurance cyclist. I became a kiteboarder. And I would tell you, I'm not the guy who's driving to and from some place is going to have an epiphany. I'm not the person who sitting on the beach is going to figure it out. But I have had some of my best ideas in life, personally and professionally, on a bike, climbing a mountain, or on a kiteboard in the middle of nowhere. And those are the moments when you're in that flow state, you can actually take a deep breath and you sort of get out of your own way. And that's sort of part of why I would say take a breath is really important, because that little thing that you do, or I try and do when I'm in a meeting or otherwise, that's not such a little thing. It's just a way to reset yourself to say, think about this a little bit more. Let it marinate a little bit. Take the time right now. Don't take too much, but you can take some time, an hour or two on occasion, to go and get that walk, get that bike ride, get out on the water. And then I come back and frankly, I have 5 or 6 of the best ideas I've had just come to you.
It's so fascinating. I'm glad you said that, Dan, because I think that is such an important idea for us to put a pin in, that even though we all work in teams and in groups and in companies, we're out there as individuals, right? And what works for someone else doesn't necessarily work for you. So the idea of really finding what works for you is such an important idea. You used the word pattern recognition or patterns a few minutes ago when you were talking about maybe some of the things that you identified that make you successful, and patterns maybe of things that maybe would make you less successful, or where maybe the mistakes and the less successful ventures you've been a part of have presented themselves. Generally speaking, you don't have to get into all the specifics, but what are some of the patterns that you've seen and uncovered where things have not gone well in aspects of your career? Are there common through lines that you've seen in the things that haven't gone as planned that maybe now you would look to avoid because of those patterns?
Absolutely. I mean, some of them are just, there's the obvious business ones, which are be wary of customer concentration, watch businesses that are having a moment in time, like really be critical about, is this a sustainable business? I mean, those are things that I spend a lot of time on, because there's sometimes you see these businesses that are scaling and all the rest, but they really, especially as a private equity investor, you have to look 5-7 years down the road and not only say, is this business going to exist, but is someone going to want to own that business for the next 5 to 7 to 10 years? And is it going to be something that's sustainable? So I think really being critical of that when you see growth is important. And then the second is, frankly, at the end of the day, we're in the human capital business. That is it. So do not, many people have over the years made the mistake of holding your nose when you meet a cult of personality, somebody who is a chief without, chief in Indians that hasn't really built a team. And you think, oh, this person has it all figured out. They're the one, they know this space, they're the best. And the reality of it is that is, if I look back at the things that were the most challenging situations I've been in, those were the ones that had the most problems around them, because what they didn't learn to do, which is the most important thing that I think any of us need to do in business, is build an incredibly capable group of people around you who are critical of you and who are investing in the business themselves and each other every day. And if you don't have that, you just have workers, ultimately, those are the businesses that are going to end up hitting a wall.
One of the things about private equity, I think, that's the most fascinating to me. It's the opportunity that you have to affect positive change over a short or long period of time for a business. And sometimes private equity gets involved in a business that's really doing well, and you have an opportunity to help it get to that next level or two. And sometimes private equity takes over a business that has clearly evident flaws, and you have to make some more radical changes to facilitate the change that business needs, and where you see the opportunities. I think one of the parts that's the most fascinating to me are these companies that are going well. When you buy a business from a family or a founder, that things are really, really going well, and maybe they've had this business in their family for decades, and now here you are on the scene, and you want to affect some positive change. That has to be a very difficult balance, right? In a sense, like you're almost kind of turning the dials a little bit here, a little bit there. Like, how do you do that? How do you take something that's going pretty well and make it even better? I think that's one of life's biggest challenges with anything, not just business.
Well, first of all, you have to have people that are willing to change. We all need to change and grow every day. All of us, me, you, everybody. If you are standing still, you are going backwards in life, right? Physically, emotionally, with your families, with your kids. Today is today, right? And so whatever worked yesterday, if anyone is under the illusion it's going to work 5 years from now, that's a mistake. There are so many examples of the volatility and transformative nature of business that if we look back to 2019, 2018, and you think about the world today, forget about COVID, just focus on AI, think about supply chain, think about tariffs, think about all of the things that businesses never thought about, didn't even mention. So to have an owner of a business that's intergenerational, that hasn't been thinking in those terms, frankly, that's better lucky than good. And I will be the first person to say to somebody, if they're going to be my partner and they're going to want me in their business, to be very open, honest, and direct with them and say, look, these are the things that I see, right? What do you see? And if the answer is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, that's not a business I would ever invest in. You want people that are curious and are thinking to themselves, how am I going to build a business that I am proud of 20 years from now? When I work with owners of businesses, and I've done a lot of what I call relational investing, which is where you're working with families and founders, my question to them is, it's 5 years from now, it's 10 years from now. You're happy with what we did with the business. Close your eyes and tell me what that looks like. And I just want to see their vision.
All right, everyone. We'll get back to the conversation momentarily. But first, I want to tell you about my free weekly email newsletter, Tarp Pullers. Each week, I share an uplifting and inspirational tarp pulling story that is sure to brighten your day. And I also highlight some of the most powerful ideas I've learned on my journey talking to 200 and counting of the world's top performers. The newsletter is short, concise, and a reader recently told me this. She said it makes her day every time it hits her inbox. Go to everybodypullsthetarp.com/newsletter to sign up today.
Because in some ways you get a sense of where you need to go. And then in terms of changes, the question is, okay, well, what do we need to do to get there? Here's my vision. Are those visions aligned? And if they are, you really do have to think about what are the things you're going to change. I'm a builder, and I look at every business to some extent like a house, a beautiful pre-war apartment like the one I'm sitting in right now. And so you have to constantly be investing in the infrastructure. You got to change the pipes every once in a while. You got to put in new Cat 5 fiber, right? Or else you're going to be running on old copper wires in your house. You have to do those things, not after they're necessary, after everyone else has done them, but you have to look down and say, I want to be ahead. And that's the way you do those things. And I always look to find partners who are thinking in that way with their business.
That question that you raised about asking someone that you're considering going into business with, this idea to like close your eyes and look 5 years out and tell me like what success looks like, or what would it look like? If your vision and their vision are not aligned, is there still an opportunity to work together and marry up those visions? Are you like just happy enough that they have a vision versus like, hey, I'm very happy with what I've got now? Talk about that for a minute, Dan.
Oh, it's not one conversation. And by the way, I wouldn't talk to one person. I'd ask the same question of their CFO, of their head of sales, of the kids, of others. Because again, you're about to go on a journey together. You're going on an adventure. That's the way, look, I don't look at what I have done and do for a living as a job. This is what I do. I love every second of it. I love it. And I'm going to continue to do it because it's something I enjoy. And if you're going to go on an adventure, you have to have an idea of where you want to go. And if you have a group of people that are going, you want to be sure that you're all going in the same direction, that you all want to be heading in that direction. And then, by the way, you listen, like I said before, and you align the interests as best you can. They don't all have to line up perfectly. And frankly, they very rarely do. Because some of us, when you're ever working on a team, and that's one of the things I love about your podcast in terms of the way you look at what makes a great team, and the coaches talk about what makes a great team, it's the same thing that makes a great business. Right? You have to have a group of people that are directionally focused on the same goals, but that are each contributing in their own way to the outcome. And understanding where people want to go will tell you who's really in it for the next 5 to 10 years, who wants to do the work, who frankly has been having a good time. It's been fun. And who, to be candid, there's nothing wrong with that, who wants to hang up their cleats and, frankly, is looking for a change. None of those are bad answers. The only bad answer is a dishonest one, is the one where you're not telling yourself the truth and you're not telling the people who you're working with the truth. That's when you end up in circumstances where you spend some more time trying to dig through it. But it's not a one and done conversation unless you're talking to someone and they're basically saying it's my way or the highway. I do it this way. This is the only way it's done. And I would imagine of the 200 plus people you've spoken to who've been on a team or part of a team, there's no example that that's been successful. Navy SEAL, Olympic athlete, coach, those are the players that no matter how good they are, you're not going to want that player on your team.
Dan, speaking of great companies and great teams, you recently joined one. You've shifted from the private equity focus of your career to be the CEO of DanceOne. DanceOne is the premier producer of educational and competitive dance events, the largest family of dance brands in the world, 60 plus years in business, 10,000 dance studios served annually, over 5,000 annual events. You've got a vision to bring together leaders in the dance community around this mission of fostering the integrity and education of dance. You have examined and been a part of so many different companies throughout the course of your career. What is it that excites you the most about DanceOne that compelled you to take on this role? Because this is different. This is a different way of engaging in many ways than you engage with many of the businesses that you've worked with throughout the course of your career in private equity in particular.
Yeah, well, first of all, I would just say when I left Skadden, I went to work for one of my clients, which was a large private equity firm. And frankly, while I was there, I realized that the private equity landscape was changing. And that turned out to be right. Because back in the early days, there were like 10 private equity firms, and it was a very cottage industry, and that was growing dramatically. And I decided at that time that I would be a better investor if my tool belt, so I had my legal skills, I had my private equity skills, if I actually got my hands dirty and became an operator and learned how to really run a business. And this is where it goes back to like one of the things I love about your podcast. Like, I'm a firm believer in pulling the tarp. And I don't believe that there's ever a time that you should stop pulling the tarp. I don't care whether you're the Yankees. I don't care whether you're the biggest, most successful business in the world. You need to, everybody at the top, everybody in the middle, everybody wherever they are in the company needs to understand that this is our business and we got to make it work. And so for me, once I had been successful as an operator, I went back into private equity, spent 17 years with TZP. It was an incredible experience. But what I saw here was the ability to take all of that learning, all of those tools, and I saw an incredible opportunity, which number one is just the world of dance, competitive and educational dance is growing dramatically. Dance is the number one consumed content on TikTok globally. I know you had one of the founders of Poppy on a couple of weeks ago, or a couple of months ago, who was, talked about their viral effect of being on TikTok, and she was a dancer. I would tell you, the world is filled with competitive dancers who are running companies today. And that's because of the discipline it takes to be excellent. And so when I saw the opportunity to effectively buy what would be Division I and Division II NCAA sports, to buy that level at dance, put them together, and really create a platform to celebrate those dancers and create paths for their careers, both inside and outside of dance, and then support there's 20,000 dance studios in America that we would like to work with. 10,000 of them are currently our clients. So we have a long way to go to grow. So I saw those areas of growth in the business. And then lastly, and candidly, I've spent my life, I've been on the board of Children's Rights, which protects kids in the child welfare system in the United States. I'm in my 24th year as a board member of Children's Rights. So the concept of educating and protecting kids and giving every kid a chance to be exceptional, to me, this is just another version of that. And that's what excited me and why I decided I would take the role as CEO and frankly spend 100% of my time serving that community.
Dan, it's such a beautiful story. It's a wonderful opportunity. And in many ways, you're just getting started. You referenced there the conversation I shared in January with Allison Ellsworth.
That was exactly right.
Allison Ellsworth, the co-founder of Poppy. And she is a tremendous example of grit, determination, and perseverance to get it done. As listeners who listened to that episode, she went on Shark Tank, 9 months pregnant, got a deal from one of the sharks, and just in the last week or so announced that Poppy is going to be sold to Pepsi for just about $2 billion. And you mentioned the TikTok and her career as a dancer and the role that TikTok has played. That was a really, really powerful through line in our conversation. But one of the other interesting things that she talked about was this idea of 80% of the things need to be structure and 20% you kind of need to leave room for stuff to happen and things to surprise you and things to adapt and evolve. With that theme of like surprising you, you knew a lot about this business when you took over as CEO, obviously. What's been the most surprising to you since you've gotten on the other side and are now the CEO of this company? You obviously knew a lot about this business when you got involved. Has anything surprised you?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that surprised me most, frankly, was how welcoming the community was and how open the dance studio owners, the incredible choreographers and artists that work with us were open to hopefully what they perceived as a creative private equity investor and executive like myself. And they've been incredible. I mean, in other words, great ideas, good listeners, telling me their truth and really giving me and helping me grow. So I would tell you what I'm most impressed with is just the support of the entire community. It's a wonderful group of people to work with. And that's probably number one. The thing I was most surprised with when I looked at we started putting together the thesis around this before COVID and really looking at youth enrichment and sports and sort of the way it was playing out in terms of the investment that kids and families were making to be excellent at things. And what I was most focused on was the female athlete then. That was something that was really interesting to me, just the growth of the female athlete and what was happening in terms of sports like soccer and basketball and others. But it took me to really take a look at dance as not just the incredible artistic expression, but the insane athletic talent, the incredible dedication and devotion, and the work ethic of 8 to 18-year-old kids. And if you want to be inspired by something, the thing that surprised me most was when I went to the Dance Awards, which is one of our national events at the end of our seasons. I went to the Dance Awards and I saw two things that just blew me away. And this is why I knew I wanted to be involved in this business. Number one was just excellence at scale. 16-year-olds, one of the world's best choreographers in front of them. No one needs to tell them to put their phone down. No one needs to tell them to pay attention. They are locked in and focused for 8 hours a day. And we see the next generation and we say all of these things about what they can't do. And I saw that at 16-year-olds. I saw that with 10-year-olds. And then the second thing I saw, which blew me away, was the competitions. Not just the skill set, but on stage, during the competition itself, competitors cheering each other on, competitors showing how impressed they were with other competitors. It's not shown enough in the world today. You see it now more than ever in sports. I mean, at the end of a football game, a basketball game, you see these players respecting each other. But you have this world, especially in competitive dance, where everybody thinks that everyone is fighting with each other, that you got to win, it's a battle. But the reality of it is they do want to win, but they also respect the game and they respect each other. And watching that, the way they would high five each other, hug each other, kids from different parts of the country, different backgrounds, different shapes and sizes. To me, seeing excellence do that showed me that this is more than just about dance. It's about an incredible group of talented people coming together to build discipline in a craft that they love. And many of them will go on and be professionals. Most of the boy and girl pop stars you see today, a lot of the actors and actresses that you see today that you're like, oh, I can't believe they can dance. They danced in our competitions. They danced at our events when they were kids. And that's why they are where they are. It's one of the skills that they have. And so for me, when I saw those things, I thought to myself, this is an incredible community, and this community deserves a center. And that's why we built DanceOne.
It is. Dan, you can just see the passion and the enthusiasm in your face and in your expression talking about this. And it's interesting that these two ideas you kind of weave together there, this idea of these kids and these teenagers having this passion and this discipline and this focus for something. And in many ways, kind of flying in the face of how a lot of society talks about the up and coming generations, right? Like they're not disciplined. They don't have work ethic. All they want to do is look at their phones. They're constantly distracted. What you saw was the opposite. You saw was, like you said, people are talking about what they can't do. You saw what they can do if given a platform, if given an opportunity. And then you talked about this idea, this collaborative spirit, or this idea of winning together, that my success doesn't mean you have to fail, that we can all succeed together. We can all lift each other up, which is such a pillar of the everybody pulls the tarp mindset that we talk about every week on this podcast. So it's really, really unique to hear you describe it that way. You know, it's interesting, like coming up, when I did through, I was an accounting major at Penn State. That was where I went to college. And I was coming up kind of in an era where we were just removed from some of the very, very notable accounting scandals and SEC frauds. And I'm going into school thinking to myself, I want to go into the business world and I want to do good and I want to do things the right way. And I don't want to feel like, to be successful, you have to do things the wrong way or do things that are counter to what you believe in. And it was something that I really wrestled with. I always wondered, like, would I be able to be successful? Will I be able to be successful in business if I do things the right way, with integrity, by lifting others up and living this everybody pulls apart mindset. And it's really something that I've wrestled with. And it wasn't something that I really understand that I wrestled with until recently. I think, like Steve Jobs said, you can't connect the dots going forward. You can only connect them going back. And I'm curious, you clearly are a person of great integrity, of great character. Is that something that you've had to wrestle with throughout the course of your career where you've questioned, like, can I be successful doing it my way, doing it the right way?
Of course. It's the hardest. I would tell you, that's a great question. Everybody has ethics and morals until they're faced with a dilemma. Everybody wants to think that we're all kind and caring until we have to be kind and caring to our own detriment. And so what I would tell you is what I learned in my career, and this is like seeing the dots, I was able to work with and for some of the most powerful and successful people on the planet, many of them, right? Front page Wall Street Journal did hundreds of M&A transactions. And when I built the Rob Report, we got to meet the entire entrepreneurial class that was built, right, during the 2000s, which was an incredible group of human beings, right, that really have built the fabric of the world, but definitely this country. And what I learned was there were three types of people. Number one is they're the people who just will do whatever it takes all the time. And by the way, in the broadest sense of that word. And those people will, morals, it's about me, I got to get mine, my family, whatever else. And that's where if they can do it long enough and something bad doesn't happen, they'll be fine, right? Then you have the people in the middle who try and figure it out and are trying to do the right thing and fighting the good fight every day. And then every once in a while, I would meet a person that just, was exceptional. And that exceptionalism was they had intention and thought about doing the right thing. It is so much easier to go for the money. In any area, it is so much easier to do the quick thing. But over time, I've always looked at it really simple. I have to go home every day and I look at my family and I look at myself in the mirror. And that's the person that I'm competing with. I'm not competing against you. I'm not competing against other private equity. I'm not competing against other CEOs. I'm not competing against other dance competitions. And that's why when I think about the challenge that you faced, everybody faces that. I mean, my joke is like, people used to say like, well, you chose these industries, private equity and otherwise, that are so sharp-elbowed. Yes, I have a set of skills, and if I have to use them, I can. But I choose to use them for the best of those companies. I choose to use them for what I think is right. And by the way, looking backwards, I have a sense of great pride in having done the right thing many, 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 many times. And did it serve me? Sometimes probably not. Maybe I would have done better or you would have done better if we chose to do things differently. But I wouldn't want to be that person. And that's what I'd say to you. I think the hard part, that's why when I see kids who are, whatever the narrative that we're all being told, right, in terms of the way other human beings are and what they think and who's lazy and who's hardworking and what does it take to get ahead. That's one of the things I love about DanceOne. And when you see what exceptionalism looks like in a child, they are out there trying to win, but they have also learned how to focus. They've learned how to pay attention. They've learned how to listen and learn. They've learned how to respect each other's space. And by the way, root for each other, lose, and then win. And it's at that moment that they can feel that they've achieved greatness. Their coaches feel greatness. And by the way, the whole community celebrates them because they know that they put in the work and they got that outcome, right? And then the kids that don't win anyway because they got to see what it was like to get up there against the best of the best of the best and be in the conversation, which is a gift. It pushes everybody up.
Dan, I have admired your work from afar for many years. I've looked up to you in many ways and learned from you in many ways. It has been such a pleasure getting to know your story and DanceOne's story and how much it means to you in a little bit more depth here today. This is a conversation that I will be thinking about for a long time to come. There are so many lessons that I know, I've taken a lot of notes as we've been talking here. There's a lot of lessons and ideas that you've shared that I know I will apply to my own life personally and professionally and will think about for a long time to come. And I know the listeners will as well.
Dan, thank you so much. You are forever a part of the Everybody Pulls the Tarp family, a certified tarp puller. And I just wish you all the continued success at DanceOne and in all the endeavors that you continue to take on, where you pull the tarp, as you've said, throughout your career.
It was great talking with you, and congratulations on your success as well. It's really exciting for me to see it, and I can't wait to hear who you interview next.
Thank you for joining me this week. Be sure to subscribe in your favorite podcast app so you can catch all of our upcoming episodes. And if you're like me and want a world full of tarp pullers, then leave a review to help others find us. You can also follow me on Instagram at AndrewMoses123 and sign up for my email newsletter at everybodypullsthetarp.com/newsletter. I'll share tips and insights to help you achieve maximum success and happiness. Until next time, keep pulling the tarp.